Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Many Firsts, the podcast where we explore the power of first-time experiences and share transformative and inspirational moments in our lives. I'm Regula Fischer, your host, and I'm super excited to be here today, live in the studio with Carlos Perez.
Hi.
Welcome, Carlos.
Thank you.
Carlos, you are indeed a man of many firsts, many roles, many names even, and I'm sure we will touch upon that in the conversation, many backgrounds. And I would like to start with your professional background. You co-founded and ran a successful digital communications agency before transitioning into the pharmaceutical industry, where you've held various commercial leadership roles over the past years, and recently took up a new responsibility heading customer experience and insights for the Africa region. In addition to that, you've been a passionate DJ for the last 25 years, and you've played and produced music and entertained people in various locations around the globe. You were born in Switzerland to Spanish parents, lived for some years in Singapore, and have recently moved to Istanbul in Turkey with your wife and 2 sons. So welcome again. Obviously, you are in Switzerland this week. How has the week been so far?
Well, thank you again for the invitation. Indeed, very well summarized. Actually, I'm going to take this as my tagline for my resume.
Oh, wow.
So yes, I am in Switzerland for the last, indeed, exactly a week. I came here for work, just the 3rd week in my new role, and therefore a lot of things to do. And the proximity of now living in Istanbul and having a 2.5 hours flight compared to the previous duration of flights coming from Singapore allows me to come a little bit more frequent to the headquarters and therefore get cracking on some stuff with some workshops and working sessions with some of the folks of the global teams. So yeah, intense week. It's always intense when I come back to Basel since I left Basel because it's homecoming, as you well said. I was born here in Switzerland and in Basel. And therefore, the agenda is packed for work, and then it's packed also for like social activities, like trying to meet as many friends as possible, trying to obviously spend some time with family. My brother and a few cousins and uncles and aunties still live in Basel, so therefore, very happy spending time with my niece as much as possible, nieces too. So yeah, it's always intense, but it's always very rewarding. So yeah.
Well, we are happy that you are here, obviously, and you've touched upon many topics now that I think we can elaborate on. I would like to start with the fact that it's Friday, so the intense, let's say, work week is over, maybe not the social week in that sense. And of course, for many people, Friday vibes, weekend vibes, it means they may go out. And that's why I would like to start with what would be nice to have right now, some of your music, but obviously we're here to talk. So maybe we just talk about music instead. And could you take us on the journey of you and music? When did that start? How did it evolve over time? What does it mean to you today?
Music means everything to me. I think it's my source of energy in so many ways. Since a little kid, I was always that little kid wanting to listen to music. I remember my uncle being in his early 20s and having records at home and a mixer, a DJ booth kind of equipment. And back then we still used to go to school on Saturdays and until 11 o'clock in the morning. And the first thing I was doing is going to my grandparents' place and trying to wake up my uncle that probably went out the night before and asked him for music. So that was the initial touch with all kinds of music artists. One of it is Michael Jackson, for instance, which I'm a huge fan of it. So yeah, I immediately got in love with that vibe and that energy that music brings, all kinds of genres. So I never narrowed myself into one specific, and that got me into trying to transmit this type of energy that it provided to me, to people through playing at different events. And I started in a very old-fashioned way, I would say. It's at school, these house parties that we were organizing and 2 CD players, not proper mixing, but just putting music on and putting records on. And that's how I realized that this is really something that is a passion. It's addictive because at the same time, it's that applause, and when I talk about applause, I'm not talking about people applauding or clapping their hands. It's that rewarding moment of seeing people having a good time, and you are somehow the person that influences that, and therefore I really immediately realized that I want to continue on this path, and therefore during university and high school, and I walked my way through, and at some point I reached somehow the public sector through different events that I could play in my early 20s. So yeah, that's a little bit in summary, but music was always and will be always there for me.
Yeah, and you never stopped since then. Yeah. Has it changed for you? Also moving places, it probably had an influence, I could imagine.
So, I mean, the truth is, until 5 years ago, I was always in Basel. So thankful to the job that I was always somehow in the corporate sector, either through the company that I was co-owning and co-running with two partners. I was able to travel the world with the job I was doing. So therefore, it was always good to be back in the home base, but I could see the world. So having said that, when we decided, my wife and I, to move to Singapore 5 years ago, that was the first time me leaving my home. I was super excited about the opportunity. I was in love with Singapore already through my few visits that I had through work. And but at the same time, it was very adventurous to go to a place where you're not known as a DJ, where you need to establish all of your network, be it friends, working colleagues, and in the music or the clubbing scene. Luckily, I had the opportunity to really meet quickly some important actors of the clubbing scene in Singapore, and that allowed me to get pretty quickly into the scene. The only downside or problem to that was COVID hit, like literally 2 months after we arriving to Singapore. And that delayed the whole process of me getting into that kind of clubbing scene that Singapore established through all these years. But at the end, after they released the restrictions that they had, I could find my way through, and that allowed me to follow my passion even in Singapore, which was amazing, and I'm thankful for the opportunity that I got back then. So yeah.
Nice. So glad to hear that also, because I can see it in your eyes and I feel it even on my skin. It's this passion, this energy. And what I would like to touch upon here as well is the names that you have. As a DJ, I think most people create a name. And what is your name? Are your names? And how does that come into you playing as a DJ? You mentioned before that you liked all genres. Yeah, is that still the case, or are you narrow? Did you narrow yourself down?
It's still the case. I mean, it's funny because I'm a person of many names, indifferent of me having chosen to have many projects or names when I play or when I produce. I don't think there are many people calling me Carlos. They are calling me Carlitos, Charlie. Like all my friends in Spain, they call me Charlie. So anyway, the main reason why I've chosen to come up with different alter egos or different names is, as you said, it's related to the genres, and I wanted to provide somehow guidance to the audience that when Carlos Perez, which was a name that I had back in the day, was playing, it was a little bit more, not mainstreamy, but covering a few genres at the same time. When I was playing as Regula, who was created together with a project that was launched back in the day called Living Room FM, I wanted to give guidance that, this type of DJ is more focusing on the disco house kind of genre. And then out of that, Roque was the more electronic or deep house, tech house, techno kind of DJ. And that's how I started to utilize these names. There were times I was more inclined into Roque Lechar, and therefore that name appeared in most of the flyers. Also internationally, and that was also the name that I decided to utilize in Singapore. But now back in Basel, I was always only Roque. So yeah, and then I had also collaborations with other producers, and names like Digital Human came up. Perez and Paulussen. So I was never eager to maintain that one name that potentially would lead into more popularity and associations to the individual. I wanted to keep it open and somehow free to allocate or decide or come up with names that reflect a sort of, like I said, genre of music or feeling that I could transmit through the music that I was playing. So yeah.
So you keep through playing music, through the music you play, but then also with all these names, you keep a certain freedom.
Correct.
And but still, then how do you yourself deal with these alter egos? Is it really, let's say, just the music, that you associate with them, or is there something internally, emotionally that you associate with them?
No, I think it's a combination of it, clearly driven through the genre or selection of tracks or music that I'm playing. But it's also somehow a sort of personality that appears out of that name. And it's funny because this week I was reading an article about, how bilingual or people that speak several languages get into a character when they speak those languages. And I've been told many times that when I speak Italian, when I'm speaking Swiss German, or when I speak English, or the languages that I speak, that I turn into actually an Italian or a French or a Spanish person, which I never paid attention to it, obviously. But I assume that when I play and when Rocky is on stage or Rocky Lechar is on stage, it could be that there is a different personality. I mean, there is a core of me always there. I'm not schizophrenic, with all due respect to the disease. But I think it's allowing me that freedom of being someone that I want to be in that moment in time. So.
And is there like a pre-phase before you go and play and are one of these personas? Do you prepare yourself in a certain way?
I always do. I always have when you prepare for a gig, you go through your playlist or you're listening to new music, material that you receive through promo from certain labels. You always explore and what it allows me to do is to project into a possible kind of outcome on like how this event might come, which is very dangerous as well, because there's always this kind of situation where you might get disappointed for whatever reason, because you were envisioning something and it didn't come out like this. So therefore, I mean, I'm trying to project myself into how it could be so that I understand what type of music I want to play and like how I want to engage with the audience. But I'm also very, I think I can say that of all the sound that I'm preparing, and maybe I'm thinking of the order of the songs, etc., it never comes out like this. Because I'm trying to be present in the moment and trying to read the audience and the mood and the ambient. And therefore I go with the flow. So it's difficult sometimes, especially nowadays where you have a vast amount of music in your memory stick or in your device. And that sometimes is if you have too much choice, you don't know really where to go. Back in the day when I started to play sometimes with vinyl, the bag that you had with you limited to play music that you have. And that created also sort of or required creativity on like what kind of story you tell with what you have at hand. So yeah, interesting evolution of the...
Yeah, so preparation, but at the same time remaining flexible.
Correct.
And I'm curious, so if you realize, or how do you realize actually that what you play sparks with the audience? Because, let me put it this way, of course, one way is for sure dancing, but then maybe in places like Switzerland, people may not always dance so wildly. Are there other signs for you or indicators where you get satisfaction, where this is what I wanted to create?
There are all types of signals, and I mean, yes, dancing is the crowd, hands up, all these kind of moves clearly indicate that okay, people are having a good time. But it's also observing facial expressions. I mean, smiles. I mean, I'm not playing always the big floor where people are dancing. I'm sometimes also playing bars and lounges and beach clubs, for instance, in Singapore. So therefore, you have much more time to observe different individuals. It's not a big crowd in front of you. It's like people sitting or like having a drink or chatting to someone. And if you play a track and you get people nodding their head or like they're just smiling or they look at you and give you signs like, wow. So these are all types of signals that you're seeing, and you're it gives you it indicates you if people are like really listening and at the same time present in the moment. So yeah.
And still, you probably have a very diverse audience, so you cannot always please everyone, I guess. So these are all things that you need to cope with somehow. Or then even maybe if it's a gig, a night or an afternoon, whatever it is, the playtime that you're on, that you may feel, it didn't go as you said, as you envisioned it. How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, this is not any different than life in general. I mean, being with friends, relatives, at work, you might have an idea at work and a project or an initiative that you really want to drive, and you need to convince people to adopt it. Not everyone is always, wow, yes, full behind it. Yeah, we want to go. So you will always have people that you can't please or you're not connecting with, and that's okay. I think it would be too easy, I would say, if it would be like that. And also because I see that, or I believe that the DJ plays also a role of educating to some extent, like bringing new music. I read one day that a person that shows you new music is a very important person to have in life. I don't know if this is true, but that's somehow the role I'm playing. And therefore, it might be that you connect with a part of the audience and less with others. I never experienced like a booing or people walking away, luckily. So therefore, but there was always someone or maybe one or two that came with requests, which is always something that DJs don't like. So,
sorry.
But yes, that's okay. It just depends how you deal with it. Sometimes I'm in a good mood and I react nicely. Other times I might be a little bit. It's funny because I have a story related to that. When I first met my now wife, she also came to an event. She didn't know me. She also came to an event where I played, and she had a request, and I actually said, no, I'm not going to play it. So the first impression that I left with my wife was an arrogant guy, and it was even her birthday. So, anyway, still we got married, and we're happily in our relationship and in marriage. So, but yeah, to that, you can't please everyone, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, and you kind of alluded to it already, but let's dive a bit deeper into it probably. In terms of your world as a DJ and the world in the corporate world, the job you have in the corporate world, do you see similarities, or is it quite different, these two worlds?
I mean, in essence, yes, they are different. It's a different kind of activity, to put it in a way. But in my case, I need both worlds. I love the job I'm doing. I'm really, truly and genuinely love the work that I'm doing for the company I'm working with. And I feel lucky that I have this opportunity to do so. And I also feel, somehow accepted for those that know that I'm also having this passion of mine, being in the music industry and also producing, which is another aspect of it. It's not just the DJing. I'm also trying, if I carve out time in my life with my corporate job, being a father, a husband, and at the same time trying to get this creativity and sit in front of a computer or a laptop and producing music. I think it's there are similarities, but it's also very different, and I'm good at that. So it's on the same lines, like these different alter egos. I think it's one person, or I can't remember actually who is said like, oh, it's a little bit like Clark Kent and Superman. You have like these two worlds or personalities. You can decide which one is Superman or Clark Kent. But yeah, I think I need this. I need this type of diversity. For me, being acting as a DJ is DJing itself, or like digging for new music or producing. It's that kind of, I'm in that bubble. I'm like in that me zone, and it's energizing. So, people might have this wrong impression, like, oh, it's all related to party, and the next day you can't get up and you're wasted or whatever. But it's not like that for me. It's an energy source. So having these two worlds really gets me going. And I realized that when we went to Singapore, when the pandemic hit, and everybody was affected by it, but that distance to to being able to play, to be in that setup, to act as a DJ and transmit through music what you wanted to. That was really, that was tough. I know for everyone in some way or the other, but that part was really difficult. And I know with colleagues and friends that they went through the same. That was very difficult time.
So you mentioned already that DJing can be almost addictive for you, right? But was there a moment in your life that you maybe thought about doing it fully professionally, like being an artist full time?
Yeah, I think, yes, the answer is yes. But again, on the same lines, like I mentioned before, I like my corporate side of my life, and I went through all my studies and everything with an ambition and with an intent. And again, I have the opportunity to work for a company where I'm really behind the mission and what we're trying to achieve. So therefore, I'm grateful for that, and I don't want to miss that part. Nonetheless, yes, I was in a junction, if you want to call it in a way. But what I like about the way I'm a DJ right now is that there is a sort of freedom behind it. I'm not, if I know from people that live out of it, that have decided to make it a full living, you're not always in that kind of mood or in that mindset to entertain, to go out and yes, for a few hours entertain people and being in that kind of mood that people want to see you. Especially because for them, potentially it's a Saturday night and your friends go out for drinking and partying, etc. And you are not there because you had it last Friday, last Thursday, last Wednesday, and you're not that energized anymore. So I didn't want to have that. I wanted to keep it in control and ideally, being able to choose where I really want to entertain and when to play. And I had the luxury that at some point I was in that position to pick and choose, if you will. And that gives them the best out of me. Although you can have days where you say, you're at home with your wife or with your partner and you're watching a movie and then, you think, well, I would rather stay in bed and whatever, get up early and do some sports. And then you need to go for a gig that starts at 11 at night. You can still go and do sports the next day, but maybe you're not full of energy anymore. So yeah, these moments is not, but I think it's with everything. Although I like as I said, I like and love my job, there are days you get up and you're not in the same kind of mood or energized like other days. But in essence, yes, I can say that it works for me in that way.
Yeah, and you were thinking it through. Now, it is true, right, that many such events and gigs happen in the night. That's also my impression. But do you see that something is changing there? Because personally, for example, I would definitely prefer earlier hours as well, especially, I guess, as we're getting older. I don't know. Is there anything happening in the industry that you see?
Yeah, it's for a while already, and I'm with you. I prefer day dance and events that start late afternoon if it's not too hot, and then go max to midnight or something like that. You have the same kind of effect in terms of the party, and maybe even better because you're outside, the sun is shining, or it's nice weather, and it's a complete different mood than in a club, dark lights,
air,
intense,
no
correct.
air.
So yeah, there are many events like that, and there is this movement since more than 10, 15 years. There is also this kind of I'm from Alicante, from Spain, and we have this new thing. I mean, it's not new anymore. It's probably already for 20 years, but it's called Tardeo, where people go out on a Saturday around 1, 2 for some tapas and drinks, and then you have late lunch in Spain between 3 and 4, and then all the bars and clubs and they open already at 6, and it's like these 2 shifts of people going out, and you could in theory go into a club and at 6 in the afternoon or late afternoon or evening, and it's like being out midnight or 1 o'clock, and then these people that have been drinking or eating and went out around 2 and then are by midnight you're quite tired, so they go home, and then the next generation is coming, and so it's working nice. I think Switzerland also tried it with, and in Zurich it works with Sanapa, and so Saturday afternoon parties. So yeah, it's a movement, and I think people want this diversity and being able to, like you said, I'm going home at 12, and the next day I'm able to do, and
I still feel human, and keep my biorhythm and stuff. Yeah,
correct.
Nice. Now, with regards to corporate world, you mentioned, or we talked about moving away from your home location to a different place in terms of DJing, but then also with regards to the job you do, how has that changed? Moving away from headquarters to the region.
Well, I mean, when we first moved to Singapore, I had a global role. I was responsible for China, APAC, Asia Pacific, and some other regions, but I had a global role, and so therefore I was somehow in a sort of location agnostic kind of function. There are pros and cons. Like in my case, the cons was the time zone issue, because I needed to connect with headquarters in Basel, but also with San Francisco people. So you end up in calls between 10 or until midnight sometimes, and that on the long run it's heavy, because you don't have really social life,
and it's like DJing, right?
Correct. It's like mixing and blending with each other, these two realities. And the other thing is, when you are in an affiliate or when you are in headquarters, your teams are there, present physically. In my case, even now with the job I'm doing, I don't have anyone around me. I'm location agnostic, working from an affiliate, supporting a region, but it's not the same region. So as you said, it's Africa. And therefore, it makes it sometimes difficult, because you don't have that human human touch or that human connection. But given the proximity that I have now living in Istanbul to Basel, that allows me to potentially travel if it's really required, and you could benefit from working sessions or workshop where you bring everyone in and work on something. So that's the downside of it. I like it because we are citizens of the world or citizens of the region, and the connectivity or the possibilities that we have with remote calls or video calls, it really gives you that possibility, and I think that's great. But I'm still going to the office, even though I don't have many stakeholders that I'm engaging with, just to have that human presence around me, and not being in your office at home the whole day in front of a screen, and not being able to connect with people.
To feel that energy. Nice. I always like to close with a few fast and fun questions where I would just ask a question. You can give an answer very short, a few words, and maybe in a sentence or two why. Take it lightly. It can be fun. Let's see. So your dream gig, with who would you play, if with anyone at all, and for who? Who would the audience be and why?
That's a difficult one for the first quick and
for a first one.
For a first one.
You want another one first?
With whom would I play? I have so many that I would like to play. So it's really difficult. So I would say DJ Sinti. And I think that there might be opportunities in the horizon. So anyway, if you listen or you watch this,
universe.
Let's confirm. I think her energy is amazing, and I would really, I'm really looking forward if it really appears as an opportunity to play somewhere outside. It could be on my favorite island, Ibiza. Daytime. I was recently there on holiday with the family, and I was at Cova Santa, which is a place that I really like, the setup and everything. So maybe a location like this, I would, or Pikes. It's also semi-outdoor and indoors. So yeah, something not too big, because I like the coziness of, and for me the big floor. I mean, I wouldn't say no if a gig would come to play. I don't know, really, really big floor like Ushuaia or something like that. But nonetheless, I like it when it's cozy, that you see the people, you have that eye contact possibility. And so, yeah, something like that, I would say. That was not a short answer, right?
That's the fun, right? And what the audience would be who? Then people from Ibiza or people visiting Ibiza, right?
I mean, the setup or the place like Ibiza brings people from all over the world. I mean, I would like to have my close friends there, and like obviously my wife and friends that we made, family away from family in Singapore, obviously my gang in Switzerland and Alicante. So yeah, the more the merrier, as we say. But yeah, also having that possibility to see people from all over the world.
It will be packed. It will be great.
Hopefully.
So what additional persona or alter ego would you still like to introduce to your life?
Oh, I think I have too many now. Regula. I don't think there is capacity
You've had enough.
I don't think there is capacity for more. No, I think I'm good in terms of adding new personas into it. If I take the language personas, the corporate, non-corporate, the DJs, the projects, no.
The private personas, yeah.
No, I think back then, like I said, it was intentional. And there were other names that didn't make it, to put it in a way. But no, I'm good with that. I'm even trying to narrow it down. So potentially Roque would become more of a focus for the years that I have in front of me. So yeah, I'm trying to narrow it down.
Okay. So where did Roque come from, by the way?
So again, I think Roque, my brother is a very creative mind, and we were debating at that time when that project Living Room FM came up in Basel, and I wanted to really come with a name that distinguished me from what I was doing so far in Basel and in the scene. So it was my brother that came up with the name. So therefore, there is a meaning behind. It's a sort of, I mean, Charles has a meaning, and he played with that word, Le Char, and then he said, like, I need something up in the front. So then he came with that name, Roque, with all kinds of variations. And I think it resonated with me back then. And therefore, I really liked it. And it landed. I mean, some people, they also call me Roque when they see me.
Yeah, sounds quite powerful. And it's for me, it feels natural to, Roque is just you as well, right? So yeah, we're very good at short answers. I love that, but no worries. Location-wise, is there a place you would still like to spend time in, potentially living in?
Yes, so that would be Madrid. I really love that city. I never lived in Spain. I'm Spanish. So therefore, I think that would be, I know that Gaye, my wife, also likes it. She had experience to live there for at least 2 weeks. She did an intensive course of Spanish, and she also has it in her bucket list or radar. And given the fact that we as a family live now in Istanbul, and my kids or our kids are exposed to that part of the culture. My wife is Turkish, so living in Spain and provide the opportunity for them to also experience the Spanish culture and then potentially go somewhere else. So yeah, that's something I think top of mind. That
now I'm digressing from the fast and fun. It's hopefully fun still, but the fact that you speak 3 languages at home, you, your wife, and your 2 sons, are there any anecdotes you can share about that? I mean, how can I envision that? It sounds very good to me. I think I would love that. I love languages, and I think it's probably a great gift to have, to speak so many languages. But you mentioned before that you yourself seem to be switching personas. That's what you sometimes hear from people when you switch languages. Do you observe that in your children?
Well, I hope. No, I'm not observing that in the children yet, and I hope my kids don't observe like 3 different personalities when I'm at home. So I hope it's still dead. Look, I was raised like that, not speaking different languages at home, but my parents were very persistent around, in this household, we only speak Spanish. And we are both, my brother and I, are super thankful for that, because it allowed us to really learn the language. And therefore, given that for us growing up in Switzerland, we were foreigners, and in Spain, we were foreigners. So if you had some issues in speaking your mother tongue, then that would be even worse to integrate yourself into what your homeland is. So therefore, we were clear, Guy and I, that our kids need to be raised like that. They need to get their languages, their mother tongues, and where their roots are. And therefore we are really, there is no other language I'm speaking with my sons. It's only Spanish, and same for Gaia. She speaks only Turkish. So it's difficult. It depends really on the personality of the kid to adopt that, because in particular at the age, for instance, where Tiago is now, where he's exposed on a daily basis to 3 languages, poor thing. I mean, his brain is maybe not acting in the same way that ours, that we can switch and therefore be in that moment in that language. So he probably has difficulties to speak one properly. But we discussed this with pediatricians and also with Matteo. It worked out. So Matteo at the beginning was only, when we were in Singapore, he was only responding in English because that was his base language, given that at school and with our helper back then, that was the language. So, but we were okay with that. I mean, we were not insisting. Now, in the way that we're dealing, it's like if they don't find the word, or if they asking. Matteo is 6.5. He's asking, so how do you say that? And then I'm repeating it so that he has it in his ears. Kids are like sponges. They absorb everything. And I think it's valuable to them. I mean, Matteo also had Chinese Mandarin or in his brain somewhere. I'm pretty sure it's, the language. I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in one corner, and he could really speak it and understand it, stood it. But so we're not insisting in that. So if they speak English, Spanish, and Turkish, we're good.
You're fine with
we're
that.
Good.
Great. Now the last one should be easy and hopefully serious and not fun.
Okay.
Please, where can we listen to your music?
So I have a SoundCloud page, which is Carlos Perez. I'm trying to upload not just my productions and what I'm releasing, but also mixes, and did a lot during the pandemic, as you can imagine, facing the wall or the window. But yeah, that was something that I was trying to transmit the genres of music that that I'm playing or I would like to play back then. So there are tons of mixtapes, and yeah, so SoundCloud is the place where I have my music.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for being here today.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
For spreading these vibes, and I wish you good vibes. I know you will be playing also this weekend.
Correct.
So for that and for everything else that is coming your way.
Thanks a lot. Much appreciated.
If you liked today's episode, it would mean the world to us if you like it, if you share it with friends, family, or anyone who could use a boost of courage. We would also like to hear from you. Share your passions, your reflections, and your dreams with us in the comments. And let's keep creating positive, healthy firsts together. We will see you next first time. Until then, all the love and courage you need. Ciao.